Hi, I'm Alex Mitchell and I'm the creator of Cancer Stories. Cancer Stories is a video diary program which is designed to help people like yourself manage their cancer. And the key aim is to record previous patients' experiences, really a wide variety of cancers. And these are patients who are genuine, real patients from Leicestershire who've given their consent to allow us to record their story onto DVD or the internet. What we ask those patients is really to give a brief account over 30 or 60 minutes. How did they manage with their diagnosis? And hopefully by watching their account, you'll be able to pick out some common themes from one or more of those videos. And those common themes might be things like what resources are available locally or nationally, or how do families cope, or how do people themselves manage with those awkward stages, either the initial diagnosis or the complications of treatment, or perhaps psychological and emotional complications, which are sometimes overlooked. So overall, we hope that by watching the video diary program, you'll be able to take some positives from other people's accounts, and hopefully that will help you better cope with your situation, whatever that is at the current time. Thanks for watching.
Hi, my name's Karen and I'm 49 now. I was 45 when I was first diagnosed with my breast cancer. I have one son and one daughter and a husband, and I've been working full-time, 35 hours before I was diagnosed, and went back to work for full-time afterwards as well, but doing a different job because of what I went through. And then in 2011 I was diagnosed with breast cancer, January 2011.
Karen, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate you spending this time with us. We're going to talk about your breast cancer diagnosis, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the first question I have for you is to understand how you were originally diagnosed. So how did it come about?
Well, it was in the summer of 2010. I examined myself and I found a lump under my left breast. Mm-hmm. But at that stage, I had my bra and the Y was digging in. So I thought, oh, maybe it's the Y that's you know, caused a lump or something like that. I did go on to the websites to think, well, could it be breast cancer? And looking at the websites had said that you know, if you're under 50 it's very rare, and you know, it's probably a cyst and things like that. So I did postpone it, but then I had got a holiday booked in October, so I didn't want to go through see the doctor before I was going on holiday, so I did put it off, and I was worried on holiday about the lump as well. So when I got back, I thought, right, I'm going to go and book an appointment. So I got back at the end of October, beginning of November, and then I had to wait. I didn't make it an urgent appointment at the doctor. I just said, oh, can I see somebody? So they gave me an appointment. I think it was in the middle of November. I got an appointment. I went to the doctor and she says, well, you know, you've got lumpy breasts, and also I was on my periods then, so it's probably nothing. But in hindsight, I knew that it wasn't that. It wasn't
right, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. And she says, well, we can't refer you to the hospital for another 2 weeks until you have another examination. So, you know, can you come back in 2 weeks' time? So I went back in 2 weeks' time and seen another lady, and she said, no, yeah, we're going to refer you straight away. This is in the middle of December now. And she said, you know, you should hear by about the 24th of December, you know, get a letter. If you've not, give us a ring. Well, I hadn't received anything, and then it was Christmas, so then after Christmas I rang, I went in and I says, you know, I've not heard anything, and somebody had lost my notes. Either they did or the hospital did. So then it had to go in again. So I didn't get my appointment to see the Glenfield till end of January.
So all those little problems, all those little delays added up to quite a big delay.
Yes.
How long overall would you say it was from you finding the lump to actually going for expert opinion?
4 months. 4 months, yeah.
Do you feel that that delay affected anything at the end of the day?
Yes, because on Christmas Eve, on Christmas Eve, I didn't feel well. I had a very funny turn on Christmas Eve, and I've never had a turn like that before. I felt really, I'd only had one glass of wine, I think, that was it. But I felt like something had gone through my body, like I was in shock. I couldn't stand, you know. And I feel that on that day my cancer had spread. Whether that people know, that they know when, you know, but I felt my body had gone into shock on that day.
And you were actually still waiting then?
I was still waiting, yeah.
You were still waiting to be seen. Eventually you were seen, you were referred to the regional centre in Leicester, in Glenfield Hospital.
Yes.
And what did they do next?
I went and had a mammogram first, and then I had to have a scan. And when they were scanning me, I knew that something wasn't right, wasn't normal cyst, because you know, they were saying, oh, it could be just a cyst that you've got. But the way that they said that, I thought, no, it's not. And they did a biopsy as well under my arm and on the lump. So, and then when I came out, they offered me a cup of tea, so I definitely knew that there was something mega up with me. So, and then they diagnosed me, and he told me that more or less 90% it was cancer then. He
knew from what he had already observed then?
Yes.
What the diagnosis was, most likely?
Yes, he said it's most likely cancer. I'm 90% sure it's cancer. He says he's not 100% sure whether it was in the lymph nodes or not. But he said, you know, I would have to have a lumpectomy and then possibly chemo, but they wasn't sure about that unless it was in my lymph nodes. But when I went back, it was.
So I was just about to ask you, did you get further information based on the results of the scans and tests that then later came back?
Yes.
Did they give you more detailed information, the cancer type or staging or outlook?
When I went back, they said that it was, he said it was in my lymph nodes, and it was, it spread. He didn't tell me what grade it was or what stage it was. And then he gave me a choice of whether to have chemotherapy first or the operation first, which I said, well, which one would you have? And he recommended chemo first, because he said my lump wasn't very big, but I hadn't got a very big breast, so he wanted to do a lumpectomy to make it a nice surgery in that. So that's what I opted for.
Now, he said it had spread into the lymph nodes.
Yeah.
Was there any other spread at that time?
Well, we didn't know, so I had to have a CT scan. So no, I didn't know if it had spread. That's why they wanted me to have chemo as well, to see whether...
It was unclear then?
Yes, it was.
And later, what did you find out?
Well, it wasn't until later that I went for my oncology and started chemo. Then I asked nobody. I never got a letter saying, come back for your results of your scan. And I asked the oncologist, you know, how was the scan? And they said, oh, with a matter of fact, yeah, that was fine.
There was something missing. You never got that reassurance, having had the testing, the further tests, to look for more systemic or, you know, further spread away from the site. You actually never had that reassurance.
Well, I had the scan, but nobody sort of says, oh, you know, come back and get the results from the scan. Yes, you know, we're happy that it's not spread any further.
And were you worrying about it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's what I mean. They hadn't given you the reassurance that would have alleviated the anxiety. Until you had to ask yourself.
Yeah, I had to ask to find the results and that. They, because they knew that they didn't think it was necessarily probably to tell me that, you know, it was okay. But, yeah, and then I started with my chemo, but I had to push for my chemo to be quick because they kept, you know, I wanted the lump out really, to be honest, as soon as possible. But they said, no, we'll start chemo. But I wanted chemo to start like next week. But then it was like, oh, well, you have to go and see so-and-so for a review and, you know, and we can't fit you in because we're fully booked and things like that. But I rang up and got in an appointment pretty early.
Okay. Right, so I heard you describe the initial way the cancer was picked up, and you eventually were referred for chemotherapy first line and then surgery next.
Yes.
And how did you find the chemotherapy? Do you remember the chemotherapy drugs you had?
Yes.
I know they're hard to remember, these technical names.
Yes, I had FEC and Taxi.
Docetaxel.
Docetaxel, that's it, yeah, I had both of them.
How did you find your body tolerated them?
With the first one I had, I think that was the one that goes into your, syringed into your hand. Yeah, that was fine when it went in, but then you feel, you know, sick afterwards, but I did have the anti-sickness drugs. I did feel really, first few days and that I felt bad, and then after a week or so on that I started picking up, you know, but the only thing was after I'd had my first lot, when I went back for the second lot, my white blood cells hadn't come back up, so then I had to have the extra drugs to bring your blood cells back up, which meant an extra injection, which wasn't nice.
And were you attending the chemotherapy suite for the chemotherapy and staying on there for a few hours each time?
Yes.
And having the intravenous administration?
Yeah.
How did you find the environment with all those other people milling about?
I always took somebody with me, and I think it's important that somebody goes with somebody and sits with them.
That's a good tip, because it also accelerates time in a way.
Yes.
Because otherwise you just feel like it's a very long, drawn-out process.
Yeah. I mean, with the first chemo, you have a nurse sitting with you, which you can be talking to you, which is not so bad, but I always wanted somebody else there with me as well. And when I was having mine, the space was very limited, and a lot of the times I was saying, you know, you can't have anybody with you and that, but I always managed to get somebody to sit next to me and be with me.
It's quite packed, but what you're saying is by request they will kind of accommodate it? If you sometimes yes, depends on what nurse you'd got on at the time. But I think now what I can understand is that there is more room and they are allowed to have somebody with you. Yeah. But I think it is important that they have somebody there, especially when it's you know, mine was only an hour treatment and that, but some people are there all day. They need people there with them. Because there was nothing else to do than talk to somebody. So
Yeah.
Did you find any particular problems with the chemotherapy even after it was finished? Any residual effects?
Well, after I had when I was on the second one, I was quite poorly with the second chemo. I had got an infection, and I had to go back into hospital because I collapsed in hospital with a water infection, which I didn't know. Because when you're on chemo, you do not know, you know, you have that many pains and things like that. You don't put everything down to anything else, but the chemo, you think that's just, you know, it's a norm.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. You attribute every symptom to that.
Yes, so you don't think of anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at home one day and feeling very hot and cold and not really associating that to a fever or a chills. And I collapsed at home one day, not realising that I had fell on the floor. I just thought I tripped, which looking back, I hadn't. It was the water infection that was...
So not only can you have a coincidental illness while you're having chemotherapy, but you're more likely to pick up something like an infection.
Yes, definitely,
and therefore it's wise to look out for those things.
Yeah, I mean, you should. I mean, when you're having chemo, you're told to take your temperature every single day, which you probably do in the first few weeks, 3 weeks, and then sort of like when it was on to my second lot of chemo, you sort of relapse and don't bother doing it so much because you think, well, you know, I'm halfway through it and everything like that, and you don't look at your temperature charts kind of thing, and that's the big key. If your temperature's up, then you have to ring in.
Did you have any indication that the chemotherapy made a difference against the cancer?
I was seeing my oncologist quite regularly, and they were measuring it, although I don't know how it wasn't really measured that well because it was done with a tape measure, and I didn't really always have the same consultant, so how one consultant could remember from the next how big it was.
Yeah, there's some variability there.
You know, it was difficult, but they did say that it was shrinking.
That's good.
So.
And I'm guessing the next step was to reconsider or go for the surgery that you'd been pending.
Yeah.
And for you, that was lumpectomy?
Yeah, I had a wide
local excision?
Yeah, with reconstruction.
Yes. You opted for the reconstruction straight away?
It was my surgeon, he said that, you know, that's what he wanted to do it straight away, do it all as part.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for what I just thought, well, they'll just cut a little hole and take the lump out.
Yeah. It was more radical than you thought.
Yes.
And what was your, impression of the cosmetic result, and also your feeling about your body in general after that?
I mean, he did an excellent job. I mean, yes, from what I had done, he did an excellent job, and yes, it you can hardly tell now from what he's done. So. And he was pleased, and so he took photos of his handiwork that he did. But yes, and I think it was a new thing that he was doing.
The technique? Yeah,
the new technique that he did.
Do you know anything about that new technique? Was it anything to do with preservation of the nipple or certain areas?
Yes, he took the nipple off and reconstructed it and rearranged the breast tissue inside. So I had a scar running all the way down and up, and then take the nipple off and replace it, and then
was it a nipple saving where they take it and then put it back?
Yes.
Yeah. So it produces a much better result.
Yes. Yes.
And that is quite new, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a new technique, and you can't tell from how it's been done that that has been done.
It sounds like you're quite pleased with it, cosmetically.
Yes.
But does that get translated into feeling okay about your body as a whole?
I think when you first have it done, I wasn't originally, because you still have a raw scar, and it's quite raised and red, and you think, well, how's this going to look?
Definitely.
But over the, it's 2-3 years now, and the scarring has faded, so it just looks like a crease line, and some of the scars you can't even see. So over time they do get better, but when you first look at it, you think, oh my God, I won't be able to go topless with that. With that. But even now, you probably could get away with going, if I wanted to, get away with going topless with that.
Well, it's a relevant line of questioning, because people will be watching this, women watching this who are undergoing that procedure, and they're afraid. What restrictions will there be? Some of those restrictions may be psychological, that you don't feel confident about going out, which I totally understand. Yeah. And for you, did you find that you were very cautious about? I
was at the beginning, yes. What I'd wear and making sure people couldn't see the scars so much and that. But now, unless you look really, really close, then you wouldn't notice and that. And everyone who's seen the scars professionally and that have said what a fantastic job that it's been done.
Would you say you changed your lifestyle at all because of the surgery?
In what way? For
restricting what you would do, for example, being out in the summer or going swimming, anything like that?
Probably there might be a couple of things I probably wouldn't wear, but most of the clothes I could wear, I could get away with wearing now anyway. I mean, I wouldn't go topless now. I'm at this age anyway, but but yes, if I wanted to, I could do. But
it sounds like your confidence is pretty high now. I mean, yeah, I know time's passed, but that's also important for people watching this to see that, a few years down the line, you're effectively back to normal in regards to appearance. At least for the procedure you had. Yes. Of course, there's a lot of different surgical procedures.
But I do think the scar, and a lot of people, the scarring does heal and look better after a year or so down the line. You might think, well, it's going to look like this forever, but it does look a lot better after a few years.
That's good to know. After the surgery and after the chemotherapy, there was still another hurdle to go. I think the radiotherapy.
Yes.
And then there's potentially maintenance treatment with tamoxifen.
Yes.
Any issues with the radiotherapy?
I just think with the fact that you have chemo and radio, it just makes you tired more, and it's just an impact of them two together, and you thinking that you can, now that you've come off your chemo, that you can do a lot more things, but with having the radiotherapy, it does make you tired and you have to pace yourself.
So there was a combination effect with the chemo and radiotherapy combined, and when did that start, do you think, the fatigue?
I think the fatigue started probably a couple of weeks after the chemo, but there was more towards the end of the chemo, because I think it was more of the build-up of the chemo that was going through. You're feeling more tired.
How severe would you say the fatigue was? Was it a kind of fatigue you'd experienced before, or something new for you?
New.
Yeah. And was it there most of the time, or intermittent?
I'd say it was there most of the time. Some days were worse than others. Some days where you feel that you're so tired you can't get up, or you could sleep all day long. And
did rest give you a sense of recharging? Or was it still a problem, even resting?
Even resting, I felt tired. You felt tired when you woke up. And even now, I would say I still suffer from fatigue.
And what was the sense of what the effect of activities, if you did something exertional? Did it make it better, or no effect, or worse? I always try
to go out for walks, even though I had got fatigue.
That is generally recommended, to try and push through it a little bit.
But you see, I used to walk. I'd always been into walking and that, and I was quite fit beforehand.
Yeah, that also helps.
But I couldn't walk we used to go around the lakes, and my husband had to drive me up to the lakes, and I'd walk around the lakes, and that would be about as much as I could manage, and then drive back in the car.
So in a sense, by what you could walk before and then the effect of the fatigue, you know, and what you could do after, you could actually measure that difference. It was really quite profound.
Oh yeah, especially on chemo. I could not have done, you know, that much. But I mean, since afterwards, I've done quite a lot of walking, but which is okay. But I still find it hard to do strenuous exercise. Yeah. So
in a way, that's been a residual effect that's never fully improved.
Yes.
It's been there, you know, as a problem in the background. Yeah. But has it partially improved such that it's still? I know it's not 100%, but is it much better than?
It was much better. I mean, before, you know, I struggled to go up hills and things like that. And yes, I can do it now, but I have to take my time. Yeah. But I will do it, but it's not as fast as I would like.
Have you ever found anything that's helped the fatigue? Sometimes resting actually, although it seems logical in what you want to do, and resting can form a kind of deconditioning effect. And sometimes the opposite is needed, which is actually an activity program, but it's very hard to do it.
Yeah, I think it's probably because your body feels weak, and it's getting you to do that. Yes. When your body feels weak, you don't want to do it because you feel weak, but you need to do it.
Precisely.
So, yeah.
Did you ever find an answer that was helpful for you?
I think the answer is to carry on doing lots of walks or activities every single day, and try and build it up from there.
I think so, yes. Beginner to low baseline, but gradually build up. Yeah. Try to avoid deconditioning, which means resting for undue periods. Yeah. Try to think of yourself as almost like your own personal trainer. Yeah. But do it gradually rather than in stops and starts.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
One area that people sometimes do come forward about, but a lot don't mention how they're struggling emotionally during the whole process. There can be a variety of reasons for that, but did you find that emotionally things were quite difficult at times?
Yes, it was hard from the beginning of diagnosis, and I had the support of my husband and my family there and friends, but it was ongoing really, and I was trying to cope with it and struggle on my own without getting any professional help. So that's what I would say to anybody, you know, if you don't struggle on their own, get help. Because
definitely ask for help if you need it.
Yeah, because the majority of my friends who've been through the same as me have all needed some kind of professional help.
Now, one of the things that's tricky is that this idea of a threshold. When do you ask for help?
Well, one of my friends who went to see her oncologist said to her she was put on to antidepressants at the beginning, and she says, well, you know, do I need to be? She says, well, you'll need them at some point, so you know,
start them now.
Start them now.
That's interesting. Although we're sceptical about that in mental health, yes, it actually has been trialled outside of cancer, particularly in areas like stroke or other physical conditions. Yes, and an early preventative prescription or even help, which is not a medication, can actually offset the later development of depression.
She said that if you don't need them now, you'll need them later.
However, the conventional approach is to wait till there's a problem.
Yes.
And then wait for the referral, and then hope that we pick people up that way. Yeah. But to be honest, that's also a problem because we miss lots of people that way.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realise that there is help out there to to get, or go to the doctors, or go and see a psychiatrist, or see some counsellors, or anything like that. They do try. I mean, like me, I didn't want to go on to any antidepressants when I was on my. I was thinking, no, I've never been on anything like that in my life. I'm not that kind of person, not a depressive person. But it's probably, I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say it's depression, it's anxiety,
yes,
which it causes
that's
you
a
to
very
be
fair point.
Down, and your moods to go down, and you to feel low. And I was determined that I wasn't going to take anything, and it wasn't until I came to the end of my treatment that it just hit me and I couldn't carry on anymore. So that's when I asked for help.
Yeah, you're quite right. In fact, anxiety is the more common emotional problem after any significant medical insult like a cancer diagnosis. We found locally that 40% of people on any given day had significant anxiety, but about 20% had a significant depression by their own self-reported acknowledgement. So it shows you anxiety is quite a bit more common than depression, at least by somebody's own recognition of their emotional state. Now, whether the answer is medication, that's a personal choice in conversation with the clinician. The best person to advise that is somebody who's knowledgeable in that area. There are concerns that people have, or will I be addicted to the medication, or will I have side effects, or will they work for me? All completely valid questions. And those things can be discussed and talked about. But generally, the modern generation of antidepressants is very safe. However, I would say that non-medication approaches can be equally as good, if not better, in many cases.
Well, I mean, I had both. I had both medication and counselling, which I think helped. And as far as addictive come, I came off them perfectly all right.
You came off the antidepressants,
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And on the counselling side and the supportive side, did you find that useful?
Yes, because you have your family to support you, but they are not an expert on what you're going through and the emotions that you're going through, whereas a counsellor have got a few, they've seen other people with the same problems that you have and can help you a lot more and stop you thinking negative as well.
Those negative thoughts that often become slightly exaggerated because they're the extension of normal fears can get out of control if you don't have somebody to bounce those ideas and discuss them, a kind of corrective third party in a way. So that's useful to hear that all those types of treatments were offered to you. There are many people who aren't offered treatments. There
wasn't. I had to find them.
Yes.
And it was only through friends of people that I knew that because I'd met a group of friends through Look Good, Feel Good, and we met up every month.
Yes.
And that was like and we fed each other information of what we'd found out.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is the power of peer support from what other people are going through. Which raised an interesting question. Putting the referral to a specialist like psychiatrist, psychologist to one side, is there a case that everyone who's going through a difficult time, maybe everyone who's been diagnosed with cancer, should be given the opportunity to have some good quality information, some support on a sensible low grade basis, meaning that it's simple and widely available.
Yes, definitely.
And also perhaps meeting with other people who've been through something similar.
Yes, definitely, and I think a lot, I still go to a group now and there's still so many people coming through the group that have not been offered, they don't know anything about finance, help, where to get cancer information from and help for medical things, and there's so many things that they're still not being done to help people in our situations.
Is there anything that you can think, having gone through this and looking back now, about a way we could organise care in a better way to address those unmet needs, they're sometimes called, in the population as a whole?
I think there should be, like, I mean, I know for breast cancer we had packs given out, but in other, I don't know whether they do that with other cancer types, whether they give them packs of where to find all this information and groups and that to find, because I don't think they do.
You're right, we could be a bit more organised.
Yeah.
And did you ever feel that the information that we give out could be improved in a sense, or were you satisfied with the quality of information given?
I would probably say it could be improved by somebody, although you're given a pack, a lot of people don't want to open that pack and read through it. So it'd be nice if somebody sat down and went through the pack with you and told you as well. Yeah. What was in there and what was out there for you.
Yes, kind of. Some people call that a coordinator or kind of a mentor. In a way.
Yes, yeah, definitely. They're definitely, you know, somebody there that they can help, you know, to ring up and to find out these things from.
In the US, this is very well organised. They're called cancer navigators. But in Europe, we don't generally have that system.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's a very good idea. If they're put into place, they can be very, very valuable.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear a little bit about resources that might or might not be offered. One of them is actually how valuable is the internet. If you go onto the internet, you mentioned it earlier, I think, and was it a friend of yours who had experience of going online to find patients who you might talk with?
Yeah, there's breast cancer website where you can go on and you can talk to people that are, you know, in your same situation, and you can speak to them online and make friends with them and discuss things, and you know, and it's up to you whether you want to exchange phone numbers with them and talk to them later or email them. And you know, and my friend found it very useful. She chose 3 people that she wanted to speak to, and you know, she's kept in touch with them, two of them now, and still speaks to them. So you know, it's helped her out. If you don't have access to anybody that's gone through your type of cancer, you know, if you go on the websites, and you know, especially if it's a different cancer or a rare cancer, you know, and you can find out sometimes they tell you what stage they're at or what kind of cancer. You can pick somebody with the same type of cancer that you've got and have talks with them. Yes. And that makes you feel, you know, that I'm not on my own. I've got somebody else there that's going through the same thing as me.
Yeah. So if you can access it, often through a chat room, you can often make a connection that you can extend later.
Yeah, yeah.
But some people would say the gold standard is still meeting somebody face to face, if possible.
Yeah.
And that can be sometimes organised as a form of mentorship or cancer buddy. Yeah. And I think you've had experience of that as well.
Yeah, I had one of my sister-in-law's friends that she worked with, and that you know, she was diagnosed and she hadn't got anybody, and she says, you know, would you speak to her? And I said, yeah, of course I would speak to her. And she rang me up and we got chatting, and she said she was scared of going for her one of her meetings at the clinics, and that, and I said I'd come with her, and I went with her, and you know, and then I introduced her to my other friends that I'd met, and so we had like a social network, and she was joined in, and you know, and she still rings them up now and then if she needs help.
And you actually then went with her to appointments?
Yes, yeah.
So you were effectively her cancer buddy, the more experienced one who'd been through it already. Yeah. And do you think that paid off for her? Was it valuable?
Oh God, yes. She was. You know, we always said if you needed anything at the end of the day, we were at the phone. You know, morning, noon, and night kind of thing. Just give us a ring, give us a text, and that. You know, we'll be there for you. You know, sometimes people will, you know, be upset and they just want to talk. And
out of curiosity, was it valuable? Was it therapeutic for you?
Yes, I think because we'd been through it, we knew that you know, it helps us as well, but it also helps them. And we know that, you know, we don't want to let anybody feel that they're on their own.
I know in some countries, I'm thinking of Holland, the Dutch Cancer Society has a whole network of volunteers who are basically mentors to new patients.
Yeah.
And it can work really well, that system, but it requires quite a bit of organisation.
Yes, yeah.
A proxy, a kind of an alternative to that is what we're doing here, which is to provide the pre-recorded stories.
Yes.
I know when you came initially, we hadn't really got it off the ground. Coming back today, reshooting it because you've given such a valuable story. Do you think the video diary, although it's not maybe as powerful as the personal contact, could there still be something valuable in that?
Yeah, because I think even when you see people that have gone through, you know, that you might pick up of something I've said that, well, I feel the same as way as you do, you know, well, and they'll think, well, I'm not on my own. I'm not silly for feeling like that. You know, it's not just me. It's other people feel the same way. And you know, if you can get people to talk and go, you know, not to sit there and worry all the while. You know, if you talk to somebody, you know, it doesn't always take everything away, but it helps, you know, for you to feel better at the end of the day. And speaking to somebody, and even if you're listening to somebody talking, you know that you're not on your own, and there's other people out there.
That's it. In terms of your personal video, who would you like to see it ultimately?
I don't mind anybody seeing it really. Anybody that it would help for them to get through what is, you know, a horrible thing to go through on your own, or even with family and that. And if it helps anybody to, at the end of the day, to find out information or to make them feel better and to, you know, to stop them worrying and things like that, then yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm thinking about a new patient who's facing what you've been through, but they're at the start of their cancer journey. Is there anything you would say to them if they're watching this video?
I would say, you know, it looks very dark at the beginning, but there is light at the end, but you don't think that at the beginning. And I would suggest that, you know, if you could find it in you to go with a friend to one of the support groups, coping with cancer, or Look Good, Feel Good, or anyone like that, or even go online and speak to somebody that's going through at the same time as you, or, you know, just put feelers out if you know anybody that's gone through that can help you. You know, that does help because sometimes when you need talking to your partner about it, they don't understand what you're feeling because they're not going through it. But when you've got somebody that's you know, that's been through it, like when I went through it and lost my hair, I didn't want to go out, I didn't want people to see me, and then I didn't want people to know that I'd got cancer as well. So, and a lot of people that I met, and they try and avoid people, all feel the same, and you think, well, I feel like that, and I didn't know that they felt like that as well. So you're not on your own when you know, there is other people out there that will help you, and it is good to get out and to meet people and, you know, let them help you.
I think that's really good advice. Can you understand why people might be nervous about asking for help in that situation?
Yeah, and it is you know, daunting to ask for help and that, but you really, you know, if you could find somebody just to go up, ring up and speak to and talk to, and you know, it just lifts you a little bit. When I used to meet my friends, we used to go for a coffee and that, we all said we all felt better afterwards, after meeting, and we've, you know, and it gave us like our therapy sessions for us.
That's great. We talked there about some of the complications. How do things stand at the moment, where you've gone through not just the acute treatment, but recovery and rehabilitation? Were there any other sources of help that you got that we haven't mentioned? Anything that encouraged you, even if that was family and friends?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of support from family and friends, a lot of support from a group of girls that I've met through cancer, and I go to a self-help group as well, which that also, you know, gives us support and helps me out. But you know, I feel probably this time last year I was not all, you know, I was probably about 60-70% there, and I would say now I'm sort of like 85-90% getting back to my old self.
That's a good indication about how far you've come. But it doesn't happen immediately. It takes quite a while.
No. And you know, yeah, it has taken a while, because when you're diagnosed, the cancer is new, and I think time is a healer in a way, and every year that goes by, you know, you're thinking, well, that's, you know, have I got through it? Is it, you know? So I think it's getting less and less at the forefront of your mind, on your thoughts.
Yeah, you spend longer thinking about regular things.
Yes.
And less worrying about the cancer and what might happen in the future.
Yeah.
So much so, how often do you worry about the cancer now, where it comes into your mind and you don't want it to be there? How often would you say?
I would say probably once or twice a month, probably now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good marker for people watching, that when you've, you know, quite a way down the line, those cancer worries are rarely not there at all.
Yeah.
But they're just infrequent and occasional.
Yeah, because I mean, when I was diagnosed and, you know, a year or so afterwards, it was every single day.
Yeah, definitely.
Every single day. I mean, now it does come in your head when you hear things on the news, and it brings reminders, it back, reminders and that. But you know, you've got to think of the positive and all the good reports that you hear, and not all the negative ones that you see in the paper. And that's, you only ever see the bad ones most of the time anyway.
That's a fair point. What is the role of family and friends in all of this?
Well, my friends were there for me they came round to see me a lot of the time. You find out who your real friends are, who come and support you, and they've been excellent. You know, they'd bring me up and ask if I needed anything and bring me anything and that. And my family have, you know, have helped me when I've been down, and so, you know, that they have been a great support. And I think people need, even if they've got no family, they need somebody to be there, like or go to a group, or you can have a group as your family or friends to support you.
A brilliant description. If you don't have those natural links, they can be in effect engineered by going to a support group and making a connection with the people there.
I mean, I would say the friends I met through Look Good, Feel Good, they are my cancer family.
Yeah. Just to explain, that's a innovation where people get makeup and a makeover.
Yes.
As part of their illness. It's cost free, isn't it? It's a free thing.
Yeah.
If you've had a recent cancer.
But it's a shame that there's not something that's good for women, but there needs to be something like that for men.
Yes, that's a good idea.
You know, and I mean, when I go to my group regularly, there's family that are there that are going through helping somebody with cancer, and they are struggling as well.
Yeah.
Just as much as their loved ones or relatives that are going through cancer, and there's not much support out there for them either.
No, I totally agree with you, and that's a theme we're trying to pick up here, to offer an insight into what relatives and also even extended family go through. But one dimension of that is what help do they get, and also do they struggle at times? Do they struggle?
Yes.
Because of what they see in their nearest and
well,
dearest.
they're the carers for us, and they struggle, because they feel that they're isolated and they haven't got anybody to turn to because they're not the ones that have got the cancer.
One thing we're trying to plan locally, but we haven't done it yet, is a support group just for family members, a kind of a relative support group.
Yeah.
Something that I think would be welcome for patients and the families.
Yes, definitely.
So you've come a long way, in these last few years since your diagnosis. Do you feel that there's any problem areas that you still want to address, or do you see things still continue to improve naturally in the future?
Problem areas, I don't know whether I'd say.
Well, if nothing springs to mind, it suggests there isn't a major problem for you.
No.
But you did describe yourself as maybe 85%.
Yes, I mean, probably the only problem area I would say is fitness and feeling tired.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you think, well, is it me or is it what I've been through? And you think back and I think, well, I'm sure I was able to do things a lot better than I was when I was diagnosed. So you do put that down to what you've been through. And I don't know whether you'll ever get that back.
Do you still have a target, something to aim for in terms of activity and fitness?
Yeah, I mean, now the summer's here and we're going to go and try and get out for longer walks and things like that. And I would love to be able to run for a marathon or something like that. Be able to do that.
I mean, that's a brilliant ambition, but it's so hard for anyone to do.
Yes.
I can't believe how many people seem to do it.
Yeah.
The London Marathon, I think, this weekend.
Yeah.
But if people ever try to run even a short distance from scratch, it's hard.
I did do the Race for Life, and I did run in that, which was, quite good.
A kind of a taster.
Yeah.
But for a good cause.
Yeah.
And what was your experience of that? Would you recommend it?
Yes, I would recommend it. I mean, I was going to walk it, but my daughter made me run it. So, yes, I mean, I would say anything that, you can give back as well.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah.
To do something like that.
Well, I was about to say, we've talked a lot about problem areas, which, of course, people want to hear. But do you feel any positives have come out of this cancer diagnosis?
Positives, I would say I've met some wonderful friends. I still see every month. Positives that you, instead of putting off things in your life, you get up and do now. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, see my family in New Zealand since. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done that. I would have put it off and said no, I can't afford it, or wouldn't have done it. So yeah, and I also think you appreciate life more, and you're not so worried about little things, and nicer probably.
You're prioritising in a way what's important for you.
Yeah.
Focusing on some of the good parts of life.
Yeah.
Taking less for granted, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
And all those are very important to hear about from people who are watching at an earlier stage.
Yeah.
Who think it's just about lots of negatives right now.
Yeah, yeah, and you do think. I mean, when you're first diagnosed and that, you think. I mean, when I was first diagnosed, I thought, that's it. I'm not going to see my 50th birthday, which is this year. So I was thinking, no, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be able to do this. And, you know, I can't think of anything. I can't plan anything in the future. But I think as the years go by, you know, you do feel more uplifted and think there's, you know, you're on the road to recovery.
What's your outlook for the future now?
To carry on doing and seeing things that are on my bucket list to tick off and to do and to and just enjoy life, I think. You know. Why
not? I think you've done really well, Karen, coming through all this, and you had that big period where you really were suffering emotionally with everything, you know, anxiety and maybe depression as well at the time. And you had, in a way, a slightly delayed initial diagnosis and some complications along the way. But, you know, looking at things probably, 3 years now later, you really wouldn't know all those things you've come through. And that's a marker of how well you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences with us. I know people will find it very useful.
I hope so.
All the best. Keep in touch.
Thank you.